You've got McAvaney, Cometti and Roberts. And then you've got these two, nuffies, living in denial. It's Croft and Horto. Welcome to the Fat Side Podcast.
So, Croft, we've had a few premiership players on, so we thought we'd go with that theme. So we've brought along former Hawks champion and 200 gamer, two-time premiership player, of course, 2018, 2013, Brad Sewell. Welcome to the Fat Side Podcast, mate.
Thanks, fellas. Looking forward to having a chat.
Yeah, it'll be good. We're going to take a trip down memory lane. Now, I don't know about this shot, Croft. I was hoping for a bit of rig.
Come on, Sully.
We'll just keep it there, chin above. That works.
Beautiful. Now, mate, you were just telling us off air. Of course, we're all in isolation. It's a bloody weird period for Australians and just everyone in general all around the world. But you're in Byron Bay, mate, so you must be doing it okay.
We're pretty lucky. Just fortunate. We kind of moved up at the start of the year. Bit of a sea change. Young family, and we've always holidayed up here and thought we'd try it with the little one going to grade 5. So we've been here for a couple of months, and just as the ISO stuff and the coronavirus has kicked in, I don't think we could be in a better place anywhere in the world. The beaches are still open. The golf course and the tennis courts are still open. So we're pretty insulated. The town is very different to what it would normally be. There's no one here at all. Of course, all the cafes and restaurants are closed, but the weather's been fantastic. So we're pretty lucky, I think.
Yeah, you're very, very lucky indeed. Now, we had a great chat to Glenn Manton last week, who was very good when it came to self-reflecting and reevaluating life goals and things like that. So it has been a good time to take a step back and think about life as a whole. So I guess what are some of the things that you've enjoyed about self-reflecting and thinking about, I guess, where you can improve when we get out of this period?
Yeah, I don't know. I think initially there's been a shift in the community or in society, and a shift towards being a bit more open, a bit more warm, a bit more welcoming to everybody. And we're only new to the community up here in Byron, so I think it's pretty unique in that sense, anyhow. But there seems to be at the sort of more of a genuine care and more of a willingness to help others, and than maybe what we'd experienced prior. So. Look, what that means going forward when we get out of this, who really knows, right? It's very easy to slip back into old habits. But, at the moment, I think a lot of people actually enjoying spending more time with their families, being locked in and appreciating that time that we otherwise may not have gotten. I think we'll look back on this period of time in 2, 3, 5 years to come and think it was a pretty cool, pretty special time whereby you weren't pressured, you weren't compelled to work, and there were other stresses and other triggers that were pulling you in different directions. But nobody's pointing the finger, nobody's blaming any individuals per se at the moment. It feels like we're all in it together to a certain extent.
Unless you're Donald Trump, of course.
I just had to check that then, realising what's happened over the last couple of days in particular. But he's pointing the finger at best of times, isn't he?
Definitely. Now we'll get things on the footy school of thought for now, and I'm sure there's a lot of our Hawthorn viewers and listeners who are excited to hear about you, Sully. But before you don the brown and gold, you grew up outside of Ballarat. Where'd you play your junior footy leading into getting to the Hawthorn?
Yeah, so I grew up in a town called Smeaton and played junior footy at Newland before going in and playing in the under-18 TAC Cup as it was then for the North Ballarat Rebels. A little bit of school footy at Ballarat High School prior to that, but it was in the country leagues and then into the TAC Cup system and rookie listed from there.
Now, Sully, I'm going to ask a very, very nuffy question. I don't know why, Rob, but I just love this one. I think it had something to do with when I was in grade 11 and Nathan Jones came out. It was his first season and said he was a massive St Kilda supporter ahead of an elimination final that we played against them and beat them. And I've had this really weird, nuffy curiosity about which particular club the players followed when they were a little tacker. So what about you, Sully? Who'd you support when you were growing up?
Yeah, for me it was West Coast.
West Coast?
Yeah, and it's odd. I guess growing up, between the ages of sort of 6 to 10, they were always on TV on a Sunday afternoon. They won the 92 and the 94 premiership. They were a successful, exciting team. Love watching guys like Matera, Mainwaring, Kemp, Worsfold, Jakovic, these types of players. yeah, I guess I jumped on the bandwagon and followed the winners then.
Interesting. Now, of course, you just mentioned it before, TAC Cup, North Ballarat. You recruited as a rookie in 2003. I love an underdog, Sully. So what was it like when you finally got the chance to play and be on an AFL list? What did it feel like knowing that you did it in, let's say, the unorthodox way?
Yeah, I mean, probably for the most of my career, probably a bit of a chip on my shoulder about that. Coming through the rookie list and feeling as though I was better than the guys on the list and better than the guys that I played against, and to that extent had to train and prepare myself that way to give myself the best chance. Wasn't a great athlete, wasn't a great kick. Felt like I had to work harder than anybody else to give myself a chance, just to get a spot in the field, I guess.
Now, when you did arrive, Hawthorn were in a bit of a rebuilding period, so there were a lot of new people coming into the club. But those who'd been there for a while, who were the sort of senior figures that sort of helped bring you into the fold and got an arm around you?
Yeah, so I guess the senior guys when I first begun were Shane Crawford, Mark Graham, Angelo Lekis, Daniel Harford, Nick Holland. Some of those older names. I mean, Peter Schwab was the coach for the first year and a half, and then he was removed, and we then had Don McDonald for about 2 months at the end of my second year, and then Clarko came in after that. So, I was pretty lucky, I think, to have Hawthorn were a basket case when I first got there, and then to have that massive clean out at not only executive and coaching football department level, but then when Clarko came in, he had to turn the list over pretty comprehensively as well. And fortunately, I was a part of that ride, which saw the kind of the rebuild from there.
Basket case is an interesting way to describe a club. I mean, I guess there's a lot of transition going on there. What do you mean by a basket case? Is that just on the field, or was there stuff happening behind closed doors as well?
No, the entire club. Not to say that they were they remained solvent, but the club itself, from a membership point of view, the success on field, the way that the club was run, administration, and probably more broadly the football department as well. Being at Glen Ferry, they were substandard, training facilities. Yeah. Just across the board, the club was below par with respect to professional sporting organisation.
Yeah, it was definitely a tough time for them, and I may as well use this time to plug our upcoming podcast, No Merger, about the 96 Hawthorn Melbourne merger that's coming, Sully. So I'll make sure I'll send you a copy of that when it is live. But back out on the field, took you a few years to become a regular, and then 06, you really sort of found your feet, and then 2007, you win a best and fairest. What was that like, knowing the talent that was around you on the list and to get the highest honour you can get at a club?
Yeah, it's I guess one of those things you don't really appreciate at the time, do you? So it took a while to felt like I belonged and earned the trust and the faith of the coaching department and the players around you also. But yeah, from there it was I think I was third in the best and fairest in 2006, and then the B&F in 2007, and even at that point in time, you still don't. The way that I trained and prepared, I still had to feel like I was on edge to a certain extent. And we played a couple of, one really good final in particular, 2007, and then got our pants pulled down that next round. And then 2008, we sort of all know what happened there. But we had a pretty unique, a young group, a really unique young group that, fortunately stayed together then to achieve some sustained success from there.
Sully, I want to speak about that elimination final in 07. I actually attended that one because I'm a Melbourne Demons fan, so I had nothing better to do because, of course, Melbourne weren't playing in the finals. I'd never forget the raucous atmosphere at that game. There were only, I think, 37,000 there, but my God, it was loud. The Hawthorn fans were incredible, and I guess a shout-out to the Adelaide fans as well who travelled. It was a brilliant game. You didn't look like winning at any point, and then you pulled it out of the bag at the end, and Buddy with that incredible moment. You were down by, I think, a couple of goals at three-quarter time. That game, was it one of those, and you spoke about it just then, where you unfortunately lost to North the following week in the semi, but Was it that finals win that maybe gave you guys the belief that this team was good enough to then obviously go on and win the ultimate achievement?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, that game is one of the loudest that I've been a part of. Because you're right, there was only 36,000 people there, and there's that one lasting image after Franklin kicked that goal. He's got his arm raised to the crowd. You just see that his number on the back of his shot from there. And that was, in my mind, that was the birth of Buddy Franklin, the player, and his self-belief and confidence as well, the way that he effectively won that game for us. And I mean, the piece of play leading up to that, where Ladson was the one that kicked it to him. That was a huge catalyst, I think, for us to take that forward into the following pre-season for 2008.
I just want to ask you about Buddy, just broadly speaking, and I know a lot of people write inch column after inch column about him being one of the greatest players of the modern era. What was it like in training? Because I hear a lot of things about how at Sydney he doesn't really train that much. He just kind of waltzes in and doesn't do much, and then all of a sudden on game day, he's kicking 4 or 5 and binning them from outside 50. It just seems ridiculous given just how talented he is. But for you, just to see it firsthand, kind of day in, day out, was he like that? Was he just so unbelievably gifted that it was this unbridled talent that he could just basically do very little during training and then rock up on match day? Yeah,
no, I think that's a bit of a misnomer, because early in his career he trained really hard. And he was a massive, a hugely competitive beast. And as soon as the balls came out in any of the running drills, the only reason he wouldn't be training was when he had to be pulled back, when his training loads were too high. He was just getting too excited and you had to protect him from himself. But no, he did all the work and some, certainly at Hawthorn. I'd imagine once he got to Sydney, his body shape changed a bit. He got a little bit heavier. He was playing a little bit deeper. Just by virtue of his age, just sort of start training a little bit less. But no, certainly at Hawthorn, he regularly was the best trainer on the track. Athletically, he was just a phenomenon. And we saw what he did on the field and the way he turned his players inside out. But no, certainly at Hawthorn, he was a great trainer.
Before we get into the 08 Grand Final, a bit of a theme that we've had on this show, Sully, because we like getting premiership players on, is the Grand Final parade. It's a fascinating day for everyone. You've been through a couple yourself. Any peculiar stories that day? Did you get seated next to anyone that you weren't too fond of?
Nah, not from... it is a peculiar day, right? It's pretty cool sitting in the back of a car and giving the royal wave to all the fans and whatnot. It's... it was a really cool experience, and it is something that is so different, so far removed from your normal prep when you're playing football. So, importantly, that was part of the reason why Stuart Dew ended up getting recruited, because he'd been through that process before and he'd been through the parade, and he basically just said to us, "You've actually got to sit back and enjoy it. You may not get the chance to do it again." So everyone soaked it in, and then you get back on the bus and go back out to training for that last session, and you've got your focus back on again. But yeah, it's a pretty cool sort of experience when you've got 100,000 people lining the streets of the city to then be presented at Parliament House or whatever it is. Really cool.
Were there any good calls from the fans? Can you remember anything?
Nothing springs to mind. No, I can't think of anything. But it's always nice for the players to have their kids with them as well. Get some great shots with some of the older players who've got their kids. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, well, the best one, Rob, so far is Tom Boyd, who said that one of the Doggy supporters was heckling him and saying, "You're not worth $1 million, Boyd." And then, of course, what did he go on and do? He had an absolute ripper grand final and was one of the best players. So maybe he should attribute his success in that granny to that bloke. But we'll move on, Sully. We'll talk about the granny. It was incredible. I can hardly remember it because I was a whippersnapper and I'd probably had a few too many. But anyway, the point is, you come in against a formidable opponent in Geelong. Geelong only had lost one game during the regular season. Before we actually go into some detail about the game, what was the overriding emotion and feeling for the players at the time, just given the tasks that it was coming up against the reigning premiers, who of course had not only gone the whole season with one loss, but they'd won the grand final the previous year by 125 points. So What was the feeling in the camp, and how did you guys, I guess, steel yourself for the battle that lie ahead?
Yeah, so I don't think it's unfair to say that we're the only ones that genuinely thought we were a chance to win it. All of the outside noise, all of the experts and the pundits expected Geelong, and rightly so. They went in as raging favourites to probably win pretty easily and pretty convincingly. But I mean, that was one of Clarko's greatest strengths: his ability to galvanise the club, galvanise the team, and instill that self-belief at a really high level. Was something that we obviously took onto the park with us. And I mean, we're pretty lucky. Geelong obviously had an off day. They missed some really easy set shots and goal that they wouldn't normally have missed. And then we had the third quarter, the pebble patch in the third quarter, which gave us some breathing room, and we'd had a lot of confidence that had been built up throughout the year, the second half of the year in particular, and the finals previous, that we knew that our third quarters were better than anybody else's, and then we sort of held on in that last quarter.
Come on, Sewell. The only reason you won that grand final was the rush behinds.
There was a few, wasn't there?
There were heaps. How many were there in the end? Were there 7 or 8?
Yeah, I don't know, but the AFL effectively changed the rule after that, didn't they?
Yeah, they did. Well, they like doing that. They like changing rules.
Well, they make sure everyone knows they're in charge, don't they?
Yeah, exactly. Cyril, the third, fourth effort on the wing. Stewie Dewey's third quarter. He was absolutely berserk, the big man. It was a great grand final. What was one of the moments that really stuck out for you when you thought, oh, shit, we're a chance here. We might actually win this bloody thing?
Yeah. I think... Did Mitchell kick a goal on his left in the last quarter? I think that's the one that... I reckon he might have kicked a goal in the last quarter, which gave us... He had a quiet day. He slotted that, and I think that's the one that gave us the breathing room for the last 5 to 10 minutes where we knew we were going to hold on. But yeah, it was probably Dewey's third quarter, that 5 minutes, a couple of the one-on-one marking contest in the centre wing, and then he and Mark Williams, a few repeat efforts, which neither of them were probably known for prior to that. A few of those repeat efforts, some pretty still individual performances, was the only way that we're going to go over the line, and fortunately that's what happened.
Now we go from one of the best highs to, unfortunately, a low. It'd be remiss of me not to talk about it. The following year, unfortunately, the one thing that you remembered for is getting absolutely cleaned up by Matthew Lloyd, and one of the more, I guess, dog hits you'd cop in the AFL. Can you remember any of that day at all, or is it just, unfortunately, a blank spot from concussion?
No, it's more of a blank spot than anything else, I think. I mean, I recall coming out before half-time and the game being in the balance. What gets lost in all of this is the context of the game. Last game of the year, whoever wins plays finals. Hawthorn, I think for the most part, dominated the first half. Lloyd as captain came off the square, first centre bounce, third quarter, and it was just the wrong place at the wrong time.
Yeah.
I've got the ball in one hand and left myself open, and he sort of just obviously come straight through the middle and went whack, and things kind of unfolded from there. And they settled more quickly than we did, and they obviously won and played the first final the following week and got spanked in Adelaide over there. So I guess it was nice sitting back to watch that.
It was a dog hit. Come on. It was a dog hit.
It wasn't fair, was it? It was the last game he played. But again, context is important, right? Because if you knew that something like that was going to turn a game, and your club would then play finals, I don't know whether it's something that you ask the captain to do, or it's something they take upon themselves, and that's what he did.
He did stay up. I remember seeing you the week after that game. For the listeners and viewers, my old boss is a friend of yours, Sully, and I remember seeing you walk through the back of Fratellino's, and I've never seen a person with a more purple face in my life. You came in to collect a pizza, and you didn't look too bad. Do you have a few photos that you can show the kids one day?
Yeah, I've got a couple of photos somewhere, I think. That's the beauty of YouTube, right? I can just show them, and they'll see it. They'll see it there for themselves. But yeah, I mean, it was I had a big black eye and broken eye socket, jaw and cheekbone. I've still got a plate and 4 screws in my face here now. So, a bit of plastic surgery maybe.
Exactly.
Cheers, Matthew.
Yeah, cheers, Matthew. Now, he did have one little final laugh. There's a photo of you on your Bucks day wearing an Essendon jumper that Lloydie sent to you. So you guys have buried the hatchet afterwards?
Yeah, no, there's no hard feelings there. Yeah, Campbell Brown was good enough on my Bucks day to tee up a signed jumper that I had to wear for a little bit from Lloydie himself. So that was a bit of fun.
What did it say? I haven't seen this.
You know what? I can't even remember what it said. I think seeing his signature on a Bombers jumper was enough.
Yeah, seriously. Let's go to another moment that you probably don't want to reminisce about, but bugger it, because it was one of my favourite prelim finals. It was a really turgid affair. Not turgid, that's the wrong word. It was just a tough prelim. It was low scoring, and it's the 2011 one against Collingwood. Luke Ball coming up trumps with that snap around the corner. You only went down by 3 points, and a lot of my Hawthorn mates, and it kills me that they say this, knowing that you go on and win a three-peat. They're just spoiled, aren't they? But anyway, that one they talk about being a real missed opportunity, despite the fact you lost to Geelong a couple of times during the regular season that year. Did you also feel like 2011 was potentially one that got away as well?
Yeah, yes and no. I mean, it was an arm wrestle of a game. I think with a better team on the night, and it was probably through our own fault more than anything else that they ended up winning. And to Ball's credit, he snapped the left snap that he certainly wasn't known for himself, and they ended up pinching that from there. But importantly, kind of we learnt the lessons from that game in terms of why we didn't win. And then, of course, the following year when we lost in 2012, there's some really important learnings taken from that. That galvanised the group and then kind of set the club up for the following ensuing 3 years thereafter.
We'll jump ahead to then. 2013, Freo were pretty wasteful in front of goal, but they did come back at you in what was, one of the great third quarters of a grand final. What was the message from Clarko during that game when Freo were just giving absolutely everything to you and it looked like maybe they were going to run over you?
I wish I could remember. I've got no idea. I do recall a message from Hodgie after half time. So he'd come out of the rooms at half time and Hodgie probably wasn't known for his oratory ability, but he basically said to the group, I want them to come back at us so that it kind of tests us because we know that we'll run away with it in the end. And sure enough, as you said, that third quarter was brutal and we were almost overrun.
I want to speak about the qualifying final against Geelong. It's the last game that you played in 2014, Sully. How disappointing was it for you to know that your career had ended in that moment with the team obviously going on and winning the flag against the Swannies a few weeks later? And the other question is, it was a hamstring injury, if I remember correctly. How close were you to potentially getting up?
Yeah, pretty close. Firstly, it's a double-edged sword, isn't it? You want to be out there and a part of the group and play with them. But I had a really interrupted season with injuries with those hamstrings and probably just didn't give myself enough runway to find form at the back half of the year to hold my spot. Because effectively it was Will Langford that took it in the end, and he had a phenomenal final series, and it was Hawthorn, if not the best, one of the best players for us during that period. So it certainly wasn't difficult for Clarko to justify that decision. That doesn't make it any easier on my behalf, of course, but I guess the solace is that the club ends up winning another one in 14, and then ultimately that turned out to be my last game, which wasn't easy either, but still nice to go out within that winning kind of environment.
Definitely. You mentioned Clarko there. He's the best coach of the modern era, obviously 4 premierships. We've been fortunate enough to speak to him through some work we're doing, and his ability to recall little details I find fascinating. Tell me about your experience with Alistair Clarkson.
Yeah, so You're right. His attention to detail and his recollection is second to none. He watches more vision and dissects the game more than anybody else, I'd suggest. One of his greatest strengths in my mind is as I said, his ability to galvanise the group and to sell a message. He's a teacher by trade, and so his ability to sell the message and then to reconstruct the learnings and teach those technicalities or teach those messages within the team is what created, I think, the sustained success that we'd experienced for that period of time. That said, he's a coach and he's ruthless. That's the game that he's in, and he's had plenty of difficult conversations with a lot of players he's spent a lot of time with. That doesn't make it any easier, but ultimately that comes from a position of making Hawthorn the strongest club and putting Hawthorn in the strongest position, enabling them to play in premierships.
Sully, I always get intrigued by the players talking about coaches, and when we spoke to Alan Tuvey a couple of weeks back, he said that Mick Malthouse was very much the type of operator that would go in, do his daily duties, leave, and there wouldn't really be any conversations between himself and players outside of what happened during those work hours, inverted commas. So what was Alistair like? Because I follow a few other sports. I like NBA, soccer, and I'm always interested in the man management style, the constant chatting to certain players versus the coaches that just go in there, do their job, expect the players to do their job during training, match day, and that's it. What was Clarko like?
I think that if you talk about Clarko at the beginning of his coaching career, he was probably very much in that vein in terms of him being the coach and there being a distance and a disconnect between the players. But as the game has evolved, he's changed his approach dramatically. Whereas now his relationship with the players is much, much closer and much more ingrained and within the fabric of the club than I think what it was certainly when I began. And that's just testament, not as much to his ability to change and transform and do what's required, but I think that also speaks to the broader AFL environment and coaching philosophies within that.
And just before we get to this quiz, this very famous Fat Side podcast quiz that Rob runs, it's a bit of a shambles, Sully, so prepare yourself. But Luke Hodge, he just another man that gets shrouded in praise for his efforts for the Hawthorn Football Club. An absolute warrior, a great leader. But it's funny, again, you get people in the journalism world, the media world, talking about his impact. I want to hear it from yourself, for someone that was out there on the field for him for a lot of your 200 games, if not all of them, because he was so durable. What makes Luke Hodge such a great leader and what made him such a great footballer?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, first, like from a football perspective, he's a supremely talented player and always had been, going through the juniors, and he's a very, very talented cricket player as well. I don't think I've played with a player as tough or as hard. Carried injuries, could read the play, particularly behind the ball. Could have been an unbelievable midfielder, but because of the makeup of our team, he played in the back half for the most part. I think as a leader or as a bloke, he never asked anything of anybody who wasn't willing or prepared to do himself. Frequently sacrificed his own game, for the betterment or to play a certain role that Clarko wanted him to play. He had an innate ability to ask anything of anybody, because that he'd always do that himself, whether it was drop back into the hole or go out to the airport to pick somebody up. He was really giving with his time. A great family man, and you parlay that with he had a real sense of vulnerability and sincerity as well, which not a lot of people know. He was prepared to put himself out there in front of the group. A lot of things he wasn't comfortable doing in front of the group, he still forced himself to do it because that is what was required of him as captain at that point in time. So he had that certain level of endearment within the players and the broader club itself. But yeah, you're right. He gets lauded everywhere he goes, and rightly so. There aren't many people, if any at all, that certainly have had the career that he's had.
Just a quick one, Sully, before we jump into the quarantine quiz. You played, 200-odd games in the midfield. When you go on head-to-head with some of the superstars of the modern era, who was the toughest opponent you ever lined up on in the midfield?
Cal Morton.
He wasn't too often inside the square. So a couple of names sort of spring to mind. First, Judd and Ablett are the first two that kind of jumped to mind. Ablett just with his sheer ball-winning ability, and they always gave it to him. Judd for his endurance and tear-away speed. But Nathan Foley from Richmond is a guy that I played against quite a bit early days, and he was cruelled with Achilles, I think, with ankle or lower leg injuries. But he was one of the hardest guys that I played on. His ability to hunt the ball, he was incredibly quick away from the contest as well. I'd say they're the three that jump to mind.
Very nice. All right, so time for the quarantine quiz, Sully. So just a bit.
What's the leaderboard, right?
The leaderboard right now, Alex Johnson's on the bottom with 2, Alan Tuvey with 5, and Glenn Manton's got 6. So if you get 7, you're top of the pile, Sully. It's 10 general knowledge questions. Some of them are footy, some of them are just a bit of general knowledge. So question 1, who won the 2009 Coleman Medal?
I have no idea. Where were we? Not Jack Rewalt.
No, a bit too early for Jack. It was Brendan Favola who won 2009.
I thought it was Matthew Bate.
Matthew Bate. No, it was not. Question 2. What is the capital city of Austria?
No idea.
You want to have a guess? You want to have a guess?
I couldn't even pluck a. I couldn't even. Zurich is the first one that comes to mind, but I'm sure it's not.
Nah, it's not.
No idea.
Nah, it was Vienna, is what I was looking for. Vienna. Question 3. This is a science question. Maybe this is more up your alley. The Celsius scale is based on the freezing and boiling point of what?
0 and 100.
Yeah, that's the scale, but what's it based on? It's the freezing and boiling point of what?
Of water.
Of water. There you go. Well done. 1 point. 1 point. He's on the board, everyone.
That's nice.
Question 4. What year did the Greater Western Sydney Giants play their first AFL match for premiership points? What year did they begin?
2010.
Ooh, it was 2012. I think they were playing VFL in 2010. Yeah. Question 5. What country is the Kokoda Trail in?
In Papua New Guinea.
Papua New Guinea, that is correct. 2 points. Question 6. What is the name of Homer Simpson's dad in The Simpsons?
No idea.
No idea. Abe Simpson is what I was looking for.
What, you're not into The Simpsons?
I never have been. I don't think I've ever seen a full episode.
Wow.
Oh,
Wow.
sorely.
There you go.
Yeah,
Well, something to get the kids around when they're a bit older, I'm sure. You can relive them together. Question 7. What was the last AFL Grand Final with 2 Victorian teams?
It wouldn't be Collingwood St Kilda.
No, it was the year after. It was Geelong and Collingwood, 2011. Close, though. Question 8. Ash Barty won which Grand Slam in 2019?
French.
That is correct. Well done. Question.
So you surpassed Alex Johnson?
Yep, you've beaten Alex Johnson, so you're not last, so well done.
That's nice. Good to hear.
Question 9. This one's a multiple choice. What year was Ballarat founded? Is it A, 1841, B, 1838, C, 1822, or D, 1850?
1850.
That is incorrect. It was B, 1838.
Surely you've forgotten your roots.
I don't think I knew that about my roots to begin with.
Fair enough.
Last question. Last question. According to afltables.com.au, which is a stats website, Sully, how many Brownlow votes did you get in your AFL career?
Absolutely no idea. 63.
That's pretty close. It was 72. So well done.
Oh, there you
That was
go.
pretty close.
You're not getting a point, though.
It's close.
Which team did you poll the most votes against for a bonus point?
Ooh.
Melbourne would be my guess.
Yeah, Melbourne's correct.
There we go.
Just had to rub that one into Adrian there.
As bonus points. That's nice.
Yeah, I'll give you the bonus points.
Hang on. Before we wrap up, can we talk about playing against Melbourne? Because Alex Johnson, who we spoke about before, a good friend of mine, Sully, he used to tell me some funny stories about playing Melbourne when they were absolute garbage, how they used to just like fight against each other on the field and bicker, and they were just an absolute shambles. I don't mind if we take the piss out of Melbourne a little bit. Did you feel a little bit sorry at times when you were hammering Melbourne by 10 plus goals every time you played them?
No, it felt good.
So they were the confidence boost team then.
Well, they were a little bit, yeah. So I almost got traded to them as well. So it always felt good to play well against. Always important to play well against them also.
When was that?
End of 2005.
Yeah, we ended up getting Brent Maloney a year or two earlier, I think, or maybe even that year. He was a good player. I would have probably preferred Sully, but anyway. That's all right. Mate, thanks a lot for jumping on. It's been good fun. Enjoy Byron Bay, you bastard.
Still blue skies.
Yeah, well, Rob's in. Where are you? You're in Richmond at the moment, but he's in North Melbourne. I'm in Brunswick.
Yep.
I'm getting over it. I need to get up to Yarrawonga where the farm is because I'm over this shit, Sully.
Yeah, I think everyone is. Won't be long.
Yeah, it won't be long. Thanks a lot for jumping on, mate.
No worries. Thanks, guys.
Cheers.
Thanks,
See you,
mate.
mate.
See ya.